Welcome to Android Authority on Air, the original Android Hangout show on Google+. I'm Derek Ross.
And I am Scott Anderson.
This week we're joined with Dan Charlton, Jonathan Franklin, and first-time show guest, Joshua Vergara. How you doing, Josh?
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Josh is a part of the Android Authority team. More importantly, he was our amazing AV guy at CES this past week. Josh made us all look good on our YouTube videos, especially me. It turns out I can do Hangout interviews, and I can do this really well. At least I think I can do it well. But when it comes to actually holding a mic in front of somebody and asking them questions and interviewing, it is a completely different thing. I'm not good at it. The first two, maybe even three videos I did, or interviews I did, were horrible in my opinion. But Josh did his magic and made them, bearable. But after that, actually, not just Josh. I got the other camera guy that was there from the Android Authority team, Christopher Wook. He's pretty awesome too, and him and I did a hell of a job the other 2 days and did some really good videos. If you guys haven't watched them, go ahead and check out our YouTube channel. They're up there for a bunch of devices we're going to be talking about today.
So how many guys were there?
Our editor-in-chief, Darcy Lacave, was there, as well as our webmaster and co-founder, Derek Scott, myself, Josh, and Chris. So there's 5 of us. It was my first CES, so I had a hell of a time. It was great. Some people keep saying, CES was a little disappointing. From a consumer standpoint, maybe. But, it was my first one. The first 2 days were awesome for me. After that, it was kind of like, where's the cool stuff at? Where's the cool consumer products that, are going to be launching?
Yeah, but, it's called the Consumer Electronics Show, so it should be good for the consumers, but,
Yeah, so talking about 4K TVs that nobody can, even use yet. It's a consumer product, but still. And then talking about, CPUs. Nobody cares about a Qualcomm, CPU or a Tegra 4 CPU. They want to know about the cool devices running it. Okay, some people, present company excluded, don't care about that. Anyway, so let's talk about some devices. We had a whole lot of interesting Android phones and tablets and Google TV devices that we'll hit on this week during the show. So Huawei introduced 2 new devices, the Ascend D2 and the Ascend Mate. And you want to talk about, I hate saying the word phablet, I really do, the whole tablet phone hybrid, but the Ascend Mate, which we'll talk about here first, that thing is massive. It has a 6.1-inch screen, so it's very close to the same size as the Nexus 7. It has a better screen than the Nexus 7, has a higher processor, better camera, bigger, and it's a phone. It's a pretty awesome device, I think. Josh, did you get some hands-on time with that?
Yeah, a little bit. Darcy and I were able to take a look at it, and yeah, putting it up against one of the more commonplace phones these days, it's kind of a no contest because a lot of people really want that larger screen. But putting it up against the Nexus 7, you have a weird sort of dichotomy there where the specs on the Nexus 7 and the experience on it, in my opinion, are a lot better, but having something just a little bit smaller actually felt kind of cool. That being said, though, the Ascend Mate was definitely, I don't know, when I had it in my hand, it felt nice, but I don't know if I'd be able to use that thing every single day, to be honest.
Yeah, I put it in my pocket, and it, it's a big phone. It fit in my jeans or slacks, whatever I was wearing that day. It fit fine, but it's big. It really is. It's a very solid feeling device. It's well built. I think it feels well built.
I wonder what the sweet spot is going to be.
Now, Huawei also had another device, the D2. So if 6.1 is a little too big, they have a smaller phone, the D2, and it has a 5-inch screen and it's 1080p, 13 megapixel camera, Jelly Bean. It's not a light phone. It's not an overly heavy phone, but it's a very solid, maybe because of the way it's weighted, it's a very solid, heavy feeling phone. Comparing it to the Ascend, I mean, they're in terms of their heaviness, they really feel roughly the same. It's a well built device too. It really is. Like I said, it's a very solid feeling.
No, we just mentioned two phones that have a 1080p resolution. Is that you guys were there? And I mean, is this kind of what they're pushing to be as a standard for a screen, at least in the high end range?
Well, I believe, unless I'm wrong here, nearly every device that we're going to talk about tonight has a 1080p screen. So I mean, this is definitely 2013 is going to be the year of 1080p screens.
Yeah,
That's
at least
cool.
the vast majority of them are going to have 1080p screens.
That's cool.
I would think at least all your LCD-based screens would be. LED is probably tougher to get it on that kind of pixel density. But
I mean, I only just upgraded to 720 with the Nexus 4.
I'm happy with 720. But
Yeah, exactly.
I got 1080p on my DNA here.
Can you see the difference?
Yeah, actually, I can. No, I can't. Unless I launch an app that doesn't support it, then yes, I can tell the difference because the app looks all stretched out.
I think at that point, color balance is more important than pixel density.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Just calibrating it well.
Yeah, one thing about the Ascend devices that I think we can touch on a bit is they actually come with some pretty massive batteries. I think that was one thing that they really wanted to sort of put out there. These things can probably last quite a long time with the D2 having 3,000 mAh and the Mate having freaking like 4,050.
That is a tablet battery.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Huawei said it's going to last 48 hours of usage. So you get 48 hours of usage out of that. That's nuts.
Yeah.
I don't doubt it. The
Yeah,
Note 2's battery life is
I'm sure
extremely
it's a lot.
impressive.
That is crazy.
So now we're talking about Huawei devices, and we're going to talk about the ZTE Grand S next. And both of these manufacturers are China-based. So most people, consumers here in the U.S., have never heard of these companies, have no clue what they are. So it's going to be interesting, if they try to move into the U.S. market, how that's going to treat them.
And some people, the followers and kind of the people that are very interested in it may know the names, but the devices are kind of still foreign. No pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, I think Huawei, probably more than ZTE, but Huawei is a name that people are probably familiar with as, makers of those knockoff TVs, those cheap, crappy versions of, good electronics from Samsung or LG. But the funny thing is, 40 years ago, people were looking at, oh God, a Samsung TV. Those are those cheap Korean knockoffs from the American companies that don't exist anymore.
Yeah, people used to get, even Samsung versus Sony, those debates used to get gigantic.
Yeah, so I mean, I know that these Chinese manufacturers, Huawei and ZTE, and to a lesser extent Lenovo. I mean, Lenovo used to be IBM, so it's still a pretty big name, at least in enterprise. But as these Chinese manufacturers are trying to claw their way into the American market, I think it's going to be slow for them, and they're going to have to keep putting up a lot of really good devices like this that are going to attract people, but they're also going to have to compete on price. So I think that's what's going to be the crux of it, not just price but quality, because people expect, they think it's the cheap Chinese knockoff, so they want it to be
but they're nice, they're good quality phones. Let's talk about the Grand S. So they're touting this phone as being the world's thinnest 5-inch smartphone, also the world's thinnest quad-core 5-inch smartphone. And I had the pleasure of playing.
How many other quad-core 5-inch smartphones are there?
I don't know, but they're the first that can say that is they're the first that can effectively use that marketing term. How about that?
Yeah.
Technically, it's thinner than 4-inch high-end smartphones. It's just you got to cover yourself because there's so many trying to claim it at CES.
Yeah, and it's 6.9 millimeters. That's pretty dang thin, no matter what you're comparing it to.
Yeah.
So, for those of you that are watching, no, my cat is not dead. I had a question. We had a question on IRC. The IRC channel, which we're eventually trying to use that. It's irc.freenode.net, channel Android Authority, and our good buddy Jeff Ribeiro asked if my cat was dead, and no, she's not. She's just sleeping.
That is highly debatable.
So let's talk about the Grand S a little bit more. So it has a 1.7 gigahertz Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 processor, 2 gigs of RAM, pretty much standard nowadays, and a 2500 milliamp hour battery, 13 megapixel camera, and like I said, a 5-inch screen. Its UI, for those of you that know MIUI, the ROM by Xiaomi, it reminds me a lot like that in terms of the launcher itself. The launcher, and even the lock screen, it reminds me of MIUI. Like I was very surprised to see that. I mean, they are both Chinese companies, so I guess I shouldn't be that surprised. But they definitely took some hints from Xiaomi on that.
Now, was it fast knowing that they kind of developed their own type of, skin?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't slow. I just launched the few basic apps and played with it just a little bit. It wasn't slow. I didn't notice any lag.
With those specs, it really ought not to be slow.
Yeah, I agree.
I think you could throw a pretty crappily programmed launcher and it'll still
Sense
fairly
isn't slow with similar specs.
Yeah. So no matter how laggy the UI is, those specs push through it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that those specs are like, oh yeah, whatever. 2 gigs of RAM, 1.7 gigahertz quad-core processor. Yeah, whatever.
I think we're getting to those days, though.
Yeah, if we could take this phone back to 2009, though, people would just
kind of cool.
Oh my god!
You just blow our people's minds with it, because I mean that's the thing with these smartphones and technology in general. The specs are getting so good, but they're also becoming ubiquitous.
Yeah,
I think it's like the desktop market. It's going to stagnate eventually.
I personally think it's like the desktop market with the fact that when I got my first i7 and I, was like, okay, every average consumer is not going to need anything more than this, and they'll be fine.
It'll be like going from Sandy Bridge to Ivy Bridge. There's no justification whatsoever to buy it at all.
Very true. All right, let's move on to the Lenovo K900. Now, a different type of processor, the Intel Atom 2 gigahertz. And is this the one that's supposed to be like low battery, as they claimed?
Well, what's more interesting about this is it's a dual-core processor, and a year ago,
is it actually dual-core, or are they just claiming it's dual-core and it's really a single core that's hyper-threaded?
Oh.
No, it's dual-core.
Because they've been running around saying their previous one was dual-core when it was not.
Well, I actually spoke with spoke with a Lenovo. I actually spoke with an Intel rep at CES, and I said to him, a year ago you guys were saying that Android wasn't good enough for multiple core devices or multiple core processors. You said that when the Medfield came out that everybody said, oh, Intel's putting out a single core processor and the rest of the world's doing dual core and quad core now. And Intel came back and said, well, the reason we didn't put out a multi-core device is because it would actually hurt Android. Android can't handle multiple cores, or something like that. They said Android wasn't good enough.
It just didn't thread properly.
Well, yeah. So I asked the sales rep. I said, so what has changed with either Intel or Android in the past year? And what you said, John, you can watch our YouTube video on this when I interviewed the guy. And he said just exactly that. It had to do with with threading, that Android couldn't properly do it, or many apps couldn't properly do it. So they actually built their processors to handle that.
Yeah, it was a change that they made in the core of Android. I want to say in Honeycomb, and then they patched it into Gingerbread in one of the late editions, like 2.3.6 or 7. But everything from ICS and Honeycomb has had it. So for Intel to say a year ago, oh no, it wasn't there. Yeah, it was. They were just behind the times.
Yeah, they're talking about you remember devices like when the Droid X2 came out with the dual core and it was useless. It was useless.
Yeah, no,
Compared
the
to
first
Droid
few
X, there was no
multi-core
noticeable
devices
difference
with Android
whatsoever.
were bad.
So Josh, I actually didn't get to play with the K900. But you guys did. You and Darcy went down there and filmed it and got to play with it and everything. Did you actually get to touch it and see any firsthand experience with it?
Really, I didn't. I wasn't able to go hands-on with it. I remember Darcy mentioning that those bigger size screens are going to be, for all intents and purposes, the future, as we've seen at CES. But I think that the main comment that I have, aside from the specs, is I actually really didn't like how it looked. I really didn't. Did you guys see the back of it? It looked kind of like a shiny wannabe LG Prada looking kind of thing. It really didn't look that great. On the video that we put up, a lot of people kind of agreed. They having that shiny back on it, I don't know, it just wasn't something that we were used to from Lenovo.
It looked very, very tall. Like the DNA it seems thin and tall, and it reminded me of something like that. It's a 5.5-inch screen, 1080p, and it's very thin. But it's very tall. It just comes off that way, so it's almost like it's like stretched. But I'm curious, how it would compare to the Huawei Mate, in the future when we can do a versus on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised the design is flashy at all. I mean, Lenovo's design is so sedated and industrial. Enterprise, just stripped down, rugged laptops that they make. I'm surprised that it's not the same for their phones.
Well, I guess they're trying to make it like a coming out party of some sort.
Yeah, I would love to see the ThinkPad of phones.
Yeah, exactly. Or a tablet with that same kind of design style to it.
That would just make me extremely. I mean, if I could get the phone that's like Rhino Liner, that's all. I'm all for that.
Or how they'll have a phone that has like that little red nub in the middle.
Yeah. I forgot about that part with Lenovo's.
A new way to navigate.
Laptops.
All right.
So let's talk about a couple tablets here. Acer is coming out with a very cheap, in price, and I'm going to say in quality too. It feels really cheap. Tablet, the B1A71, because that's an awesome name for a tablet.
Sounds like a fighter plane or something.
It does sound like a fighter.
So we're just going to call it the B1. I mean, that sounds like the B1 bomber too, but still. So it's a cheap tablet. It's going to be about $150 here in the U.S. whenever it launches. It's going to be about $120 over in Europe, and
that'd be 120 euros, not 120 euro.
Yeah, obviously. It has a 7-inch screen with a 1024 by 600 resolution, so it's it's not winning any awards for its display, but it's a budget tablet. A 1.2 gigahertz dual-core processor, 8 gig of
MediaTek? I didn't even know MediaTek made processors.
Well, they do for this device.
That's how much you know, Dan.
That's how impressive these specifications are.
So Dan, you're not going to bust out a MediaTek kernel for this, or what?
No.
Okay. It has 8 gig of storage and.
Is that even ARM? Oh, Derek.
I would say no. It's more competing with the cheapest low-end Kindle Fire.
It really looks like it, to be honest, from this.
Yeah, but even the cheap Kindle Fire, didn't they upgrade to a 1920 or not 1920, but something by 800?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So, but it's a cheap tablet, and it's.
Yeah, for those specs, it should be less than $150.
Well, they said somewhere around. We're not sure. The U.S. specs, nobody knows for sure because we don't know an official launch date. We don't even know if it's going to come here in the U.S. They did tell us that they're looking into it, whatever that means. But yeah, it's $150 for a kid's tablet. I mean, you don't want them to break a $200 tablet. You're on a budget. Yeah, I mean,
you can find a Nexus 7 on sale for just a little bit more, and it's pretty much twice as good.
You're right. But Hey, it's nice to have more cheap tablets on the market, right?
That's true. More choice is always a good thing.
But you know what's nice about this is for everybody that complains about an SD card slot, this has one, so you can put more local storage. So maybe that's the deciding factor here.
If you read some comments in threads, I guess some people would buy this based upon that.
Yeah. So if you need something cheap with an SD card, here you go.
If you need, this would be a good tablet to use BitTorrent on and not have to worry about ruining your computer. That you just don't care.
Buy it for your BitTorrent client. That's
and Jeff makes a good point. It can't be less than $150 because they aren't making money off of the content like Amazon is.
Or
Yeah,
Google.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd see this device as something that you'd give like your 12-year-old kid, to be honest, because of the price point, and it's just good enough that the kid's not going to be all that picky about the speed or the specs or anything like that. It's just something to play games on.
I would argue younger than that.
Oh yeah, I didn't want to go too young. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, so let's talk about another most likely cheap tablet. We don't really know the price on it yet, but Vizio announced two very interesting tablets at the show. We actually didn't get a chance to take a look at them ourselves. You had to go to a suite. I don't know where they were, maybe in Trump, but you had to actually leave the show, and we were too busy geeking out at the show to leave to go to their suite to check it out. But we did see their press release, and according to their press release, these devices are aimed, in my opinion, depending on the price, but just by looking at the specs, they're aimed at taking on the Nexus 7 and the Nexus 10. And I say that because they run stock Android, and they're pretty much the exact same specs.
Pick that up. They run stock Android.
Yeah.
This is a manufacturer not partnering with Google for a Nexus device, releasing something running stock Android.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, that's huge. What other tablets do that?
What's the last device that was released, excluding the Motorola Zoom, that did that?
The ZTE something or other, that prepaid phone. ZTE has one out there that does. But yeah, you're right. There's no tablets, and there's only maybe one, maybe two devices, that do at this time.
And this is a strategy Vizio has used on their laptops as well. They've on their Windows laptops. You're not going to find, all this trial software and stickers all over the, everywhere and stuff. This is something that a philosophy they've adopted, and I 100% agree with it because people are tired of that crap.
Yeah.
So the Vizio 7 inch, we don't really have a name at this time. It's 1280 by 800, 16 gigs of storage, 1.2 megapixel front-facing camera. And like I said, Nexus 7. The cool thing about the Vizio 10 is it's going to have a Tegra 4 CPU. That's the first tablet that I know of that's announced to come with a Tegra 4.
I think it's the first device not made by NVIDIA that's announced coming with the Tegra 4.
Yeah. So it's going to have a 10.1-inch screen, like I said, Nexus 10, a 2560 by 1600 display. And like I said, Nexus 10, 32 gigs of storage and stock as well. So who knows what the prices are going to be? But if they're comparable, I mean, it's another. I'm curious to see how that turns out against the Exynos processor. Because some people were saying that the Exynos processor, to push all those pixels on the Nexus 10, you can get it to lag a little bit. If you work hard at it, you can get the UI to lag from time to time. So will the Tegra 4 not lag in those scenarios? That's what I'm curious to see.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of good stats on either the Tegra 5 running Android or excuse me, the Exynos 5 on Android or the Tegra 4.
No.
So Josh, you got to do a bunch of Versus videos with the Xperia Z and the ZL, right?
Oh yeah, I'm excited to talk about these.
Yeah. So since you did extensive work with these new Xperia devices from Sony, do you mind talking about them for a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. The Xperia Z and the ZL, to be honest, I think would be my personal best of show, to be honest. As far as mobile devices go, phones and whatnot, you're looking at 1080p displays, 5-inch on the Z, on both of them actually. And the funny part about the two devices is that the ZL even though it's sporting the same size screen, was able to pack it into a smaller form factor. So it's comparable to that of the it's not as big, and the Z, while it is a little bit bigger, has a very good feel to it. It's like it's glass all over, and it's they wouldn't let us say waterproof about the phone. They said water resistant because they don't want anybody. Yeah, they wouldn't let it. They don't want anybody to jump in a pool and just think that their phone's going to be okay.
But they were submerging them in a little like a fishbowl or something as part of their demonstration. Yeah.
Yeah, just like I did with the Xperia V. In my review of it, I put it in my fishbowl, and it worked perfectly in there. The thing that a lot of people don't know is, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same for the Xperia Z, is that when it's underwater, the screen is inoperable. So you can't do anything underwater if you're using it. It's just that it's not going to die.
You can't do any like James Bond stuff, like scuba dive and take pictures then.
Not at all. No deep sea diving with that thing. Right. But other than that, you got a 13 megapixel camera on the back. The thing that I thought was interesting about the camera was, while we didn't get a whole lot of technical explanation on it, it's capable of HDR video. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I would love to check that out myself. Other than that, 2 gigs of RAM in both. Micro SD support, I think, on both devices, if I'm not mistaken. And as far as the look and feel goes of when it comes to the two of the phones, like I said, the Z is glass all over, so it's very slidey in your hand, and it takes fingerprints like nothing. When we were doing the Versus videos, we kept having to wipe down the Z because Darcy was like all over it. The Z, on the other hand, has a nice matted sort of textured back, and it feels really nice. It's kind of a toss-up, really, what I would think the best one between the two is. But I'm not going to lie, after working with the Xperia V, having a water-resistant or waterproof phone, it's actually kind of cool. I'm not going to lie. Being able to throw that thing in like a body of water and not worry about it, I think that's great. And they even told us if the phone gets dirty, you could wash it off. I'm just like, what? But cool. Yeah, I really do think it's pretty cool.
Just kind of a side point, NFC in general, is it catching on with new devices?
They do say, whenever we ask about NFC, it's they do say yes, and they kind of try to make it a big deal. But like we tried to demonstrate with our own phones one time when we were not at the show floor, it's not, I don't know, NFC is cool and everything, but I don't think it's a really amazing protocol to use, at least not yet. You know, if I were to share a photo with somebody and try to do NFC, they might look at me and say, why didn't you just text it? It would have been faster. You know?
Yeah.
It's a bigger deal in countries like Japan that have pretty much adopted it wholeheartedly. Because they look at you, you know, if you pull out a debit credit card, they look at you like you're crazy over there.
Yeah, that is true. I still haven't been able to figure out Google Wallet. I do want to try it out, but
yeah, we just got the carriers here that hold us back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so
let's talk about the Pantech Discover. Now, whenever I was reviewing this phone, and I was actually with the Pantech ladies, I kept calling it the Discovery for some reason, and thanks to editing awesomeness, we were able to. Every time I said Discovery, I was like, "Oh, damn it!" And then I was like, "All right, I gotta start this again." Sorry, Wookie. And then it's not like I'm a big Discovery Channel fan, or I don't know. I just kept saying Discovery every time, and
that was a fun video to edit. I'm not gonna lie.
Did you do that one, or did Wookie do it?
No, I threw that one together.
Okay, well, you did a good job. Yeah, it's a neat phone. It's, you know, Pantech is known for, in my opinion, lower end phones. You know, you don't see too many people out there saying, you know, wow, check out this new Pantech phone. This one's not bad. It's a mid-range phone. The best thing about it is it's $50 on contract. That's cheap. It's only on AT&T, and it has a 720p screen. Comes with Android ICS. So yeah, it's, you know, a little older, but if you need a cheap phone, it's not bad. The coolest thing about this phone, like besides the price, I would say would be the speakers. It's really thin until you get up to the top of the phone where the speakers are, and then it bulges out. If you want to see what I'm talking about, you check out our video on our YouTube channel, and has these massive speakers in there, and they sound really, really good. Now, for what I'm talking about, let's say you're watching a movie on your phone, and you get to a point where the audio in the movie is really loud. Maybe there's an explosion or something. Sometimes on these little tiny little speakers, you'll get some crackling or some. Just it doesn't sound perfect when there's a very loud noise. You said, you know what I'm talking about. Well, we watched a video and went to an explosion scene, and it didn't crackle or anything right through that. It sounded good. And they're touting these as 3D speakers, and the sound was really, really nice. I was impressed with it. It has a 4.8-inch screen, dual-core 1.5 gigahertz Snapdragon S4, 1 gig of RAM, 16 gig of internal memory, 12.6 megapixel camera, and it has something new called AT&T Drive Mode. So it helps you send and receive text messages while you're driving. That was pretty cool, as well as full VPN and EAS support. So it's going to be available actually starting today, the 11th, and from AT&T. It's not a bad low-end mid-range phone.
So when we get this phone, in order for them to market the sorry, I keep going green over here. Like I told you, my webcam's not that great. But anyway, when we get these phones, they'll come with a Michael Bay film just built in, so you can really see how the speakers are.
Maybe, I don't know. That's actually interesting. We'll have to tell Pantech they should start packaging them with a Michael Bay film to show the videos. So, Dan and John, since you guys are the resident CPU experts, let's talk about some non-consumer products that were announced at the Consumer Electronics Show. Because as I was saying earlier, the average person doesn't care about a processor, but NVIDIA and
they care
Qualcomm,
what the processor can do for them, though.
Yeah, well, these new processors are going to do some pretty interesting stuff. They're gonna core all the things as we said in our preview video of CES the other day. So what do you guys think about those new processors?
Yeah, I really haven't seen a whole lot on the Tegra 4. I know it's supposed to be 4 Cortex A15 cores, which is impressive since Samsung can't get 2 to consume little enough power to use in a phone. So I'm surprised NVIDIA is ready to move forward with 4 of them. And then it's set up in the same 4+1 sleeper core setup that they've used in their previous chips. But the sleeper core this time is also a Cortex A15 core instead of being, I think it was A5 previously. But that core is still not visible to the user or to the system. And basically you can't get stats off of it very easily at all.
One thing that I find interesting about the new Tegra 4 is the fact that it has some type of new photo technology or photography architecture, and the fact that on a regular phone, if you want to take an HDR picture, there's some delay and it takes some time to process. With this, it's almost instant. It takes like 2 pictures and it's instant HDR, which is pretty cool, and that's a benefit for people that want to take HDR and not wait around for the CPU to render it,
Yeah, that's a really big deal. I mean, as a photographer, HDR video for photographers like myself consists of, I'll just stay green, whatever. What you do is you take 2 different exposures of the same photo. So you actually need to have like a tripod set up with the camera and do that. And then in post-editing, you put them both together so that the exposures pop out at the same time. I always thought that HDR on phones wasn't very... It's kind of weird, to be honest, because you have to take those 2 shots, and camera phones can never really keep up. But what they're saying is the Tegra 4 processor with its 72 GPU cores and the 4 CPU cores, both of those clusters are going to take the same picture at the same time and process them together. And it's going to sort of revolutionize camera phone technology. I'm not too sure if it's going to become like the biggest selling point for more smartphones that come out with it, or tablets for that matter. But it is really exciting to see that there are some advancements in camera phone technology, I think.
You guys remember when Google said that the Nexus 10 was the fastest tablet on the market?
Yeah.
Well, they did a direct, side-by-side comparison of the Nexus 10 and something running the Tegra 4, and they were rendering web pages one after another. And the Tegra 4 did it twice as fast. So it just completely blew out the Nexus 10 as the fastest, tablet, which was very interesting, and I love the fact that they, push it forward, but it's just kind of disappointing that it's like just came out.
Technically, it's basically 4 Cortex A15s versus 2. I mean, it should be double
higher speed.
if it threads, in a perfect world, which is not going to be a perfect world.
Yeah.
The other thing to note about the Tegra 4 is if you want LTE, it's going to be on an optional chipset from Icera. So
yeah,
it's probably, just taking a wild guess, it's probably not going to be anywhere near as efficient as what Qualcomm's got.
Yeah. Also, it does have 4K ultra high def video support. Interesting. It's ready for stuff to come. So that's cool. I like the fact more so that it can output that in an HDMI, that setting, as opposed to on the phone.
Yeah. I mean, NVIDIA's sort of frequently will push things out to sort of be the first to do something. But that's not always necessarily the best.
Yeah. Right. And if you try something the first time, you're not always going to be the best, but at least you put it out there and make people think about it and maybe improve upon it. So
yeah,
that's probably the only way to get OEMs to adopt it.
And definitely compared to Samsung with the current Exynos 5, which just was not very impressive.
Yeah, and then let's go over the new Qualcomm Snapdragon processors. Basically, they did a kind of a name change on the series.
Yeah. This is their second name change for those who are keeping track of their Snapdragon processor sets.
Yeah, so you got the 800,
S1, 2, 3, and 4. You get 200, 400, 600, and 800, which is not to be confused with Crate 300 and Crate 400.
Mm-hmm.
So the 2 and 400 weren't really detailed. They're going to be lower end processors, so obviously not the ones that us enthusiasts are going to care about. The 600 is basically just a stepped up version of the current S4 Pro. So it's the same processors, tweaked for a little bit more efficiency and overclocked a little bit, but otherwise pretty much the same setup.
It will produce 40% more power than the S4 Pro while consuming less battery. That's a nice plus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of that power bump is coming from the clock speed increase, right? You're going up to 1.9 instead of 1.5. That's a big chunk. It's almost 33% right there.
Yep, so, and then the 800.
The 800 is using the new Crate 400 cores, which are individually capable of running up to 2.3 gigahertz.
That's crazy.
That's 4 cores at 2.3 gigahertz each.
And that'll be a 70% increase from the S4 Pros, which is freaking crazy.
Huge. And that's also paired with the new Adreno 330 GPU.
So you know that joke about, hey, is that a server in your pocket? Well,
yeah.
They say the 330 is faster, like twice as fast as the 320 too.
And it's also matched with their 3rd generation LTE radio that supports LTE Advanced. It supports LTE carrier aggregation. So a lot of new radio tech is bundled into that Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 as well.
Another cool thing to note is the fact that Qualcomm claimed to have 50 devices set up for running the 600 and the 800 product lines, which is cool.
Just for 2013.
Yeah, and that's awesome.
Yeah, and in terms of timeline, they're expecting devices with the 600 to be hitting the market sometime Q2, and the 800 sometime probably Q3.
Okay.
And I don't have any details on the timeline for the Tegra 4 or for the the Exynos 5 octa-core.
Yeah, the octa-core.
Yeah. Which,
all right, so Derek, Google TVs, there were a lot of them.
Yeah, interesting stuff with that. So I got to play with the majority of them. The Hisense TV, they also had the Pulse there as well, but we've already reviewed the Pulse. The new TVs from LG, a new set-top box from TLC, as well as Asus, or Asus, depending on what school you're from. So let's talk about the TVs, the Hisense TV. It's the same specs as the Pulse. They all use the same SoC, the same Marvell chipset. And it has 4 gigs of storage, 1 gigabyte of RAM, 1.2 gigahertz dual core. Like I said, they're all the same thing. Now the Pulse is stock Google TV. It's a stock experience, but the new Hisense Google TV is not. It's lightly skinned. It's not as
The
skinned.
Pulse.
What? Excuse me.
The Pulse. What is that?
The Hisense Pulse. That's the set-top box.
Ah.
And the Hisense TV.
Okay.
TV is it's a TV that comes in between 32 and 65 inches.
Okay.
In Q1, the TVs will be available. The Pulse is available now, just the set-top box alone for $100. TVs will range in a wide variety of prices. Like I said, it's from 32-inch to 65-inch. It comes with version 3 right out of the box. And the neatest thing that I saw, I was most impressed with, was a social stream app. So you're watching TV or you're watching YouTube or whatever you're doing, and you have an app open. You can launch the social stream app by hitting the social button on the TV, and your Twitter and Facebook streams overlay. So if you're watching a sporting event or something and you want to see what people are talking about, as the game goes on, you can have that right there. Now, sadly, there was no Google Plus stream. I was sad, but hey, not everybody knows about this network apparently.
Yeah, I think Google hasn't released an API to be able to do that. Anyway.
A public API is available.
Now, is that just your general stream from Twitter, or is that like, I'm watching
You can do
a football
hashtags.
game and it's going to automatically pull the hashtag for that football game?
I don't know if it automatically pulls it, but you can add a search. You can add a hashtag. So if you say I'm only looking for hashtag Android, like that tablet that Jonathan Franklin has,
Yeah. No, I mean, that'd be an interesting way to sort of add on to the UI, especially any channel.
Yeah. But
It's related to it.
I mean, it's not an overly extensive, UI modification. The widgets, they had some extra widgets you could put on there, so you could be watching your live TV in one widget and have, 3 or 4 other widgets on there as well. I liked it. It's definitely not bad. Like I said, Q1 it'll be available. Now, LG has. Oh, actually, one more thing about the remote. The Hisense TV remote is almost exactly the same as the Pulse remote. There's maybe 3 new buttons, but it looks and feels exactly the same dimensions, same teardrop design, everything. So if you need a new TV, and you want a smart TV with Google built in, you have that available. LG, as I said, had a new TV. The GA6400 series will be available in 42 inches to 60 inches. They have a more in-depth skin, more in-depth UI. It's highly customized. The TVs themselves have almost no bezel at all. They're using LG's Cinema Screen design. It's a premium design to their new models, and it looks a lot sleeker and a lot more modern. As I said, the UI is updated and it's slightly different from the current G2. The remote as well has been slightly revamped. And one thing I noticed is that I'm a big fan of Plex. It actually comes with Plex, and Plex is like a $4 or $5 app, so it comes with Plex right out of the box. So that's nice. Plex allows you to stream media from your local network. And actually, soon Plex is going to do cloud syncing on Android as well. So Google TV will actually get that. And the Plex rep said that should be coming by the end of the month. But the LG TVs are very nice. I was impressed, and they're nice products. I would probably buy one over the Hisense TV if I needed to get a new TV. Moving on to set-top boxes, TLC. They have a what's that?
The TV channel, the learning channel.
No,
the music group.
They're a company from China.
Oh, so not the learning channel.
No, it's not the learning channel.
There's like a trend here. If you haven't heard of a company before, it might be from China. So
Yeah, that's a fair point. Here's just random acronyms, though.
And actually, you have to call it right. It's not TCL. I mean, it's not TLC, the learning channel. it's TCL. So now you're like, oh, I've heard of it, right? No, yes, I made a mistake. It's TCL. It's still a company that you most likely haven't heard of, like I said, because it's a small Chinese manufacturer, just like Hisense. They're a Chinese manufacturer as well. Once again, all these Google TVs have nearly the same specs. So it's the same specs as the Pulse, the Vizio CoStar, using the same Marvell system on chips. It does have a slight skin, not as much as LG's version. But the coolest thing about this is they're going to come with something called Personal Office Box, which is facial recognition for personalized experiences for people in your house. So right now, if you use PrimeTime, it customizes, my watching habits to me. So it knows what I want to watch and gives TV shows and movies based on me. But my wife and I have vastly different television watching habits. I don't watch God, what's that woman channel? I don't watch Lifetime. So I don't.
Channel.
If you did, you'd be depressed, right? Like crazy.
Oh no, another movie about cancer.
So if we had that, then we would have personalized, habits, and it would recognize us by our face and say, "Oh, hey, Katie's here." That's my wife's name. So let's give her all the latest Lifetime movies or something. Whatever. So that's neat. It's gonna personalize experience. And the remote is vastly different from any Google TV remote. Now, they told me the remote is not final. I actually wasn't even allowed to take a picture of it or a video of it, but because the design is not final. The current design does not have a keyboard on the back, so that's quite different from every other Google TV remote, which allows you to type. It's very, very thin, slim, sleek looking. It's very minimal. It only has a few buttons on it. It reminds me of a lot like a larger, more buttonized Apple TV remote. And the Asus Cube, last but not least, of the Google TV announcements from CES. Once again, you had the Asus was one of the ones where you had to go to their suite in the Trump Tower on the 62nd floor to do a review. So I only got to hold it in my hand and talk to the rep. I didn't get to actually use the UI myself, but I do know the specs are the exact same as the Vizio CoStar and the Pulse. Once again, these guys all rock.
Innovation in this market.
What's that?
There's a lot of innovation in this market.
Well, they're all rocking the same internals basically, but the Cube is different. It's a Cube. It costs $30 more than its competitors. That $30, what's it? Quarter one, Hisense, quarter one. The Pulse will be getting version 3 here in a week. Plex will be getting a major update to allow cloud syncing and cloud streaming. So if you use Box.net or Dropbox, or any of those other services, you'll be able to sync your movies out there and stream them from there, from your own personal cloud storage. There's a lot of things happening in Google TV. It keeps changing and evolving. I'm sure over the next year we'll see a lot of changes with Google TV. Who knows where we'll be at?
Quick question from YouTube. We were talking about this a little bit earlier pre-show. What do you guys think will be the first phone or tablet pushed to the market with the new Snapdragon 800 series? I think pre-show we were talking more so tablet.
Yeah, I think it'll probably come in a tablet first, but I do think it'll be in phones.
If it came in a phone, HTC would probably be the first one to come because they're pretty tight with Qualcomm.
That's true.
Really, but the first of the S4 Pros was not.
Yeah, that's true.
It was the LG.
Yeah, it's LG.
I personally think it'll be in a tablet first.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we'll see. And then they'll see how it goes on that, and then they'll, trickle down effect.
Or it'll end up being
Somebody
on a
not named
tablet, too.
Samsung.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see it in a Xiaomi phone first again, like it was for the S4 Pro.
I want a MediaTek.
So let's. Do we have any MediaTek? Actually, I'll tell you something that we didn't talk about, and we have a very short video of it here at Android Authority. I don't know if it's going to be turned into a review or not. I only played around with it for a few minutes. There's a very interesting device running a rock chip, I believe, processor out of China, and it's a tablet running Android that looks almost as much as it can to look like Windows 8. It's a tile launcher, and every different home screen has tiles on it for various apps. So on the home screen, there's your favorite apps, and you flick to the one side, and you have all your Office apps. You flick to the other side, has all your games and your tools, and it's a tiled interface. It was from a manufacturer out of China, and was it very fast? Man, it was okay. It was a little different. That's all. It was a Windows 8-ified skin on top of Android. It was just something different. Nothing too exciting in that.
Tile all the things. Give yourself asbestos exposure.
So, in terms of apps this week, any major real players besides Chrome Beta?
Chrome Beta.
It's fast. Much faster than Chrome.
Yeah, I'm curious what's happening under the hood that it's so much faster.
Is it in the Play Store?
No, not in the Play Store. You actually have to have a direct link.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you search for it, it won't come up. So we'll actually put the link in the comments just so people can find it if you haven't found it yet. Yeah, it's faster. I mean, it really is. There's a lot more permissions too, but I trust Google. It definitely renders large web pages faster. I like it. I can't wait for those changes to come downstream to the final version. And you can have them both installed too. Unlike the desktop version, where you can't have both installed, you can have both beta channel and the stable channel installed.
It seems like the people that were happiest or noticed the biggest difference were people with like dual core phones, or say like a Galaxy Nexus or something along those lines, where the thing might have just been Chrome was just really just pushing it to the max. I don't think you're going to notice as much if you're on like a Nexus 4.
Chrome is not that power hungry, or it shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't be. No. But it seems like those are the users that are. Because I noticed a little bit of difference on my Note 2, but Chrome wasn't nearly as slow on my Note 2 as it was on my Galaxy Nexus. I mean, it was like night and day.
Okay, so,
let's one last comment about CES for those of you that didn't get a chance to go. Wow, we walked a lot. I think I developed shin splints. I don't know. My legs were killing me by the end of the week.
Feet for me, man. It was. And someone tried to give us a tip, not to bring backpacks, and I think he was right because, oh my goodness.
Yeah, Chris Siebel said to not bring backpacks. He said just to bring like a carry-on luggage. It has like a little stroller on it. But yeah, we ate a lot of really good food. We had a lot of fun in the evenings. There was a lot of partying to be done. You had to work hard all day reviewing tech, and then you got rewarded to stay out until the sun came up partying. It made for an interesting few days. It was a good time. Said I had first time I met Josh. Actually, it's the first time I met everybody from the Android Authority team. We all had a hell of a time together. It was good.
Yeah, it was really great to meet the whole team and everybody, and I'm really looking forward to the next time we all get together and do it.
We need to make a Android Authority meetup, and maybe we even invite Dan and Scott and John along next time.
Absolutely.
Tag alongs, just like third wheels.
Actually, I've met Dan before. I met John before. Haven't met Scott. I don't know if I want to do that.
I agree.
He wants to go to Minnesota anyway.
All right, well, so Scott, where can everybody find us?
If you guys are watching us right now, probably watching us on YouTube or Google+, you can watch us on our Google+ page, Android Authority. That's where most of the comments come from. You can also comment on YouTube. We do see those comments as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Android Authority. Also, we are available as a podcast on SoundCloud. also on Podbean, also on iTunes. And to get our show updates, our summary of the show, go to androidauthority.com, scroll on to the bottom right, and it'll be a little on-air section, and you can read a little snippets there.
You know what? And I'm going to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. Watch androidauthority.com for a awesome revamped user interface. No, that's not right.
Revamped website.
Yeah, revamped website. There we go. Revamped website coming in the very near future. We got to take a look at it this week, and I think it's pretty awesome. Josh, what about you?
Actually, you know what? I think I was so busy editing that I didn't even get to take a look at it.
Oh, well, take my word for it. It's pretty cool.
If it's anything like I saw before, it looks good.
Yep. All right, guys, have a good night and have a good weekend.
See you.